Okay, finding more articles this morning on Paul Ryan's mistruths. I guess that's probably the best way to say it. It's untruths. How about that? Okay. It's just that he's bending the truth to appease to preach to the choir. Bending the truth to appease the choir. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, we've said it now. Um, and I've got an interesting article. I won't say who emailed me this out of anonymity, but this seems to really. This is an article by Juan Cole entitled "Top 10 Repeated Paul Ryan Lies." This year's Republican campaign may be the most dishonest in history, he says. A couple of weeks ago, I listed 10 major falsehoods and gaffes of Republican VP candidate Paul Ryan. He repeated several of them in his Tampa speech and added a few more. In honest political debate, when a candidate says something that's not true, he's confronted by journalists and the public and either gives evidence that it is true or backs off. Ryan continues to insist on repeating known falsehoods to the extent that even Fox Cable News lamented his, what shall we say? Lamented his dishonesty there. The screen just went off there. Okay. Voters need to ask who Paul Ryan represents. It is people who make $1 million a year or more. Everything he says is intended to produce policy that benefits them and which hurts working people. Millionaires don't like having to pay for government-provided infrastructure or health care for workers and don't like having to put up with unions. The rest of us like driving on roads without potholes, over bridges that don't fall down, and not being bankrupt when we need an operation. Since most Americans would be crazy to vote for policies that only benefit our 3 million wealthiest out of 310 million, Ryan tries to appeal to the workers with religion, banning abortion. He needs to put together a coalition of millionaires and some religious workers in order to win. But even that wouldn't be enough. He has to get people on his side who would be hurt by his policies, and that requires that he simply lie to them. So here's a list of lies as compiled by this author of this article. Ryan blamed the U.S. credit rating downgrade on President Obama, but it was caused by the Republican Congress's threat to raise the debt ceiling. That is, the fault for the credit rating downgrade from AAA to AA belongs with Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan continues to claim that President Obama said business owners did not build their own businesses. Obama said that business owners benefit from government infrastructure and programs which they did not build. This do not build theme continues. They're pounding us with this do not build theme. No small business owner has built an interstate highway or bridge, but those are the means whereby their goods get to market. Ryan's talking point in this regard is the typical Karl Rove lie, and among an informed electorate, it ought to discredit them. Ryan depicted Obamacare as virtually a turn to the Soviet-style totalitarianism. So be afraid, be very afraid, as one relative told me. It's kind of funny. Be afraid, be very afraid, as incompatible with liberal freedoms for the individual. But the logical conclusion is that Ryan's running mate, Mitt Romney, turned Massachusetts into a gulag. This according to the author here. Ryan slammed President Obama for not implementing the deficit-cutting measures recommended by the Simpson-Bowles Commission, but he himself voted against Simpson-Bowles. Ryan keeps attacking President Obama's stimulus program now, but in 2002, when then President George W. Bush proposed stimulus spending, Ryan supported it. Quote, "What we're trying to accomplish today with the passage of this third stimulus package is to create jobs and help the unemployed." Ryan told MSNBC 10 years ago, that's what the quote was. Ryan says that the stimulus had not had positive effects, while economists say it saved or created millions of jobs and pulled the U.S. out of near depression. So I think there was a quote by Romney earlier too, saying that, well, what should have we done with GM? Just managed bankruptcy and, excuse me, there's some stuff on my screen here. Managed a bankruptcy and just let the system play out by itself. Now, if we would have done that, we could have lost millions of jobs. Ryan slammed President Obama for the closure of the auto plant that closed in late 2008 under George W. Bush. Ryan's running mate Mitt Romney opposed Obama's actual auto bailout, which was a great success and returned Detroit to profitability. Here's just a quick snippet from Rachel Maddow. Had a rare chance to interview Walker, and he will usually not show his face on MSNBC. very careful. But this is rare when Walker and Rachel had actually got to ask a question to Walker. Here it is.
The auto bailout was not effective for Wisconsin and Ohio, for other neighboring states there.
It wasn't in Wisconsin. If you ask the guys that used to work at GM in Janesville, if you look at the guys that worked at Chrysler in Kenosha, they don't feel like it was effective because they're not working today. What we need is true prosperity, and yet it comes really more effectively through the private sector, and that's what Paul talked about tonight. He didn't just talk about the budget. He talked about freedom and prosperity. Those are the things I think independent voters as well as the base cares about in the state of Wisconsin.
I hear you on the general issues. It is surprising to hear you run down the American auto industry at a moment that it really has come back, and to see such a bright spot in the economy being talked about as if things haven't worked out in the auto industry since the bailout is a surprise, Scott.
I'm just pointing out it didn't in Wisconsin, and ultimately did in places like Michigan and elsewhere, but it could have come back more effectively and sooner had they taken the advice of Mitt Romney early on and done a managed bankruptcy instead of spending all those dollars of taxpayers' money that otherwise could have been done more effectively in the private sector early on. We wasted a lot of money. We've done that in many other areas in the federal government. It's yet one or more of the many indictments against this president and his administration, and why we need to move forward.
Was there?
Okay, so that's just some of the banter there with Scott Walker. Managed bankruptcies, what he said would have saved. I guess we've got to leave it to the business economic experts to debate that, but so he's saying a managed bankruptcy, if we would have done it better, it would have turned out better in Wisconsin, even though Obama saved millions of jobs across the country. They're picking on Wisconsin, Janesville, as an example. Paul Ryan is pounding on that because it's a good political issue. It gets the base riled up, and so Obama saves the whole industry. Things could have gone better in Janesville, so everything is a disaster. Okay, so that's the logic that the Republicans are trying to feed us here. So just so you're aware of the logic that's going on. A couple of other items from the Obama lie. The Paul Ryan saying that Obama is lying on a number of issues, and these are the Paul Ryan lies that he describes. Paul Ryan charges that Obama has stolen $700 billion from Medicare for his Obamacare. In fact, these expense reductions do not cut Medicare benefits, and moreover, Romney and Ryan supported these reductions. The difference is that they would give the savings to the affluent, whereas Obama uses them to cover the presently uninsured. So they would take that $700 billion, apparently would give it to the rich, the upper 1%, the 3 million out of 300 million. So, there are 3 million people doing very, very, very well. So it's the war against the 3 million versus the rest of us. That's really what this country is turning into. And that's not a pretty war. Not a pretty war. Just got to face it. It's not a pretty war. We have to start caring about each other again, pretty much. I mean, it's that simple. Let's keep it simple. Ryan continues to push his long-standing plans for steal from the elderly and give to the rich Medicare plan, which President Obama warned would cost ordinary recipients over $6 million a year extra. PolitiFact checked and rated Obama's charge as correct, though they noted that the figures referred to CBO analyses of Ryan's last plan and not his new one, which has not been subjected to similar analysis. Ryan certainly recently put forward a plan that would cost ordinary people that much extra. And Mr. Ryan neglected to note that under the tax plan he favors, Governor Mitt Romney would pay less than 1% in annual federal taxes. He just forgot to mention that. Or, if a reporter tried to ask that, he would not fare too well. Or try to ask Chris Christie like that, he would jump on top of the reporter and suffocate him. I mean, that's pretty serious stuff. So, highlighting Romney's already low rate compared to ordinary Americans, putting the spotlight back where Ryan's appointment was supposed to misdirect it. So, notice that he didn't talk anything about taxes and how much Romney's paying in taxes. It'll be interesting to see in the Democratic convention how much the Democrats are going to really, how much are they going to just go at the jugular here, or are they going to play nice? Play nice, go for the jugular. We'll see what they do. But I want to see politics be a civilized thing. But what it's turning into is just a complete and utter circus. You've got these people on an extreme right at these conventions just giddy over these sayings, and then Democrats could be accused of something similar on the other extreme, but what we need is just to come together here and realize we're all one. We're all one, okay? So we need to communicate. That's it. That's my diatribe for today. Check me out at the JFA blog.